If Zhao Yu didn't know about Su Minglan's attempted to poison him, he might think she was used to being abused. But now, she likely wanted to delay time, fearing that Zhao Yu would take action against her younger sister. Zhao Yu shook his head and helped Su Minglan up. "I'm tired, let's leave it for now." Promising not to abuse her anymore would sound hollow now. A year had passed, and people don't change overnight. All he could do was gradually change their perceptions. Su Minglan stood still, her expression fluctuating, seemingly guessing whether Zhao Yu was genuinely tired or had ulterior motives. She signaled to Su Shoulan, who was watching from a distance. Su Shoulan quickly got up and quietly approached the door of the youngest sister's room, knocking in a pattern of 3 long and 1 short knock. Only after receiving a similar response from the room did Su Shoulan relax and return to the side of her bicycle to start generating electricity. There was a pressurized well in the shelter. Zhao Yu had used it when he was young and was familiar with its operation. Pouring a scoop of water into the well and pressing the handle, cold groundwater soon gushed out. "I'll do it." Su Minglan took the initiative, scooping some water to fill the kettle. About 10 minutes later, rice and 2 stir-fried vegetables were served. There were still 2 pounds of stored rat meat in the shelter, but Zhao Yu found it hard to swallow, so he decided not to cook it. "Have you eaten?" As Zhao Yu was about to eat, he remembered Su Minglan was beside him and casually asked. "We ate, we don't consume much, so we're not hungry yet," Su Minglan replied with a pleasing smile. "What about Su Lan?" "She's resting. She was too tired from her previous shift of generating electricity." "Okay." Without asking further, Zhao Yu began to eat on his own. The rice was fine. Other than a musty smell, the texture was normal, but the vegetables were a little too bland. The condiments in the house had long been used up, and most of the remaining ones had expired and tasteless. After a simple meal, Su Minglan's eyes were sharp and her hands were fast. She quickly came up to collect the bowl. Zhao Yu had wanted to wash the dishes himself, but seeing Su Minglan's appearance, he thought about it and just let her do it. He checked the food reserves and found that there was indeed not much left. It could last for 3 days at most. This was even if the other 3 women ate very little. If they ate as much as they wanted, they could finish it in a day. The most important thing now was to go out and find food. Back in his room, Zhao Yu took out both guns, loaded the bullets one by one, bolstered them on his belt, and adjusted the pistol to a position where it could be easily drawn. "Honey, are you going out?" Su Minglan, having finished washing the dishes, had unknowingly reached the entrance to the master bedroom and carefully inquired, poking her head out. "Yes, I'm going out to find food." Su Minglan seemed to remember something and quickly ran towards the end of the hallway. When Zhao Yu reached the entrance, he opened the hatch, ready to climb out. Su Minglan was carrying a lidded metal bucket on her back, which gave off a foul smell that wafted in every direction. Zhao Yu glanced at her without saying much and took the lead, climbing up towards the ground through the hatch. Su Minglan followed closely, with the metal bucket on her back. The hatch was only about 10 meters deep, with an exit at the top, resembling a manhole cover. Outside the exit was an abandoned house, which was previously built by the former owner. Upon reaching the exit, Zhao Yu scanned his surroundings to ensure there was no danger. Only then did he open the cover and crawl out. Inside the hatch, Su Minglan climbed up the ladder. Zhao Yu extended his hand to help her out. Su Minglan hesitated for a moment that Zhao Yu would think to help her. She felt puzzled but dared not refuse. "Honey, I'll handle this." Su Minglan didn't linger, running outside with the bucket full of feces. Zhao Yu followed behind to ensure her safety. In the past, Su Minglan would usually handle this task alone, running over 100 meters away to a forest to dispose of the waste. The world was still relatively bright, with 3 moons overhead. Even without streetlights, at least they wouldn't trip over rocks while walking. A few scattered houses in the distance appeared desolate and silent. Further away, various nocturnal creatures and insects could be heard. Hearing these noises, both felt slightly reassured. Compared to wild animals, mutated beasts were clearly more terrifying. In places with mutated beasts, insects and wild animals would flee. The sounds indicated there were no mutated beasts nearby. The two quickly reached their destination. Su Minglan dumped the contents of the bucket. Not far away, A dozen pairs of glowing eyes stared at them, making her shudder and quickly turn around. "Let's go." Zhao Yu already had his pistol in hand, vigilantly watching those eyes. While wild animals weren't as terrifying as mutated beasts, they often attacked humans. Zhao Yu could handle a small number of them unarmed, but if outnumbered, he might have to use his gun. Firing could potentially attract larger wild animals, or even mutated beasts, which would be counterproductive. Su Minglan was startled by Zhao Yu's voice, not expecting him to shelter her. But there was no time for her to think, and she hurriedly ran back towards the house. Zhao Yu backed away a few steps before quickly ran towards their house. Not long after they left, the owners of those glowing green eyes from the forest rushed over to the pile of waste. The creatures, similar to wolf, were larger in size compared to those on the earth. Their teeth were sharper, their claws were making them one of the most threatening wild animals to humans. Fortunately, Zhao Yu had killed a few of these creatures before, teaching them not to mess with him. He escorted Su Minglan back to the house and opened the hatch. Once he saw her go in, he closed it. Lying on the iron ladder, Su Minglan looked through the watchtower at Zhao Yu until he vanished from her sight. Only then did she snap back to reality. He feels different somehow. Today, Zhao Yu was different, unusually polite, and even escorting her back and forth. It's an act. He's definitely pretending. Su Minglan soon regained her composure, believing Zhao Yu was up to something again. After all, a year of living together had given her a clear understanding of him. Once outside, Zhao Yu put away his pistol and took out a dagger, sneaking towards the forest. As he approached, dozens of eyes suddenly appeared where the waste had been dumped earlier. Zhao Yu locked eyes with the creatures for a moment, then slowly moved in another direction. His target wasn't these pack wolves but another wild animal in the forest, a creature similar to a wild boar. For more than 10 minutes, Zhao Yu ventured deeper into the forest, pausing occasionally to examine animal tracks before proceeding. The original owner knew how to hunt, but he feared injury and rarely engaged these larger animals. The only time he did was a few months ago when he shot several wolves with his gun. The result was attracting mutated beasts. Not only did he not get to eat the wolf meat, but he also narrowly escaped death, lying at home for a week before recovering. Since then, the original owner had mainly targeted smaller animals. Apart from hunting, another way to obtain food was to scour the city for supplies and then trade for food in human settlements. However, the nearest town to the village is now occupied by several mutated beasts, leaving no room for trading. Further away is another town, over 50 kilometers distant, making it an inconvenient trip. In this era, even if there are cars on the road, no one dares to drive them. Traveling is only possible on foot. 50 kilometers would take about a week to walk, and one would also need to be wary of nocturnal beasts. When the settlements were still in existence, only significant powers could travel between two towns like this. In the post-apocalyptic world, groups of a few, like Zhao Yu's, were the mainstream. Still, some chose to band together. Small groups had around 50 people, while larger ones could have several hundred. The original owner, with 3 beautiful women by his side and a relatively safe shelter, never considered joining these groups. After walking for several more minutes and spotting a footprint resembling a petal, Zhao Yu stopped. He chose a robust tree and easily climbed up using his hands and feet. Sitting on a sturdy branch, Zhao Yu rolled up his sleeve and gently made a cut on his arm with his dagger. Drip dash. After 3 or 4 drops of blood fell, he took a bandage from RHE's simple first aid kit on his waist and dressed the wound. A few minutes later, noises began to stir in the surroundings. Soon after, a wild boar, almost 1.5 meters tall, appeared, heading towards the place where the blood had dropped, sniffing the ground as it moved. Zhao Yu slowly stood up, dagger in hand, and when the wild boar was right beneath the tree, he jumped. Thud dash. The dagger pierced directly into the vital point of the boar's head. Grunt 1. The boar screamed in pain and charging madly in all directions. Zhao Yu quickly lay on top of the wild boar, gripping it tightly to secure himself. Crash dash.
Bang!
Thump dash. The boar, entirely out of control, breaking several trees as thick as bowls. After a few more minutes of chaos, it seemed to lose strength. its movement slowing, until it finally collapsed, motionless. Zhao Yu then pulled out the dagger and stood up. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. At this moment, he too was battered and bruised, with cuts and bloodstains all over, hardly looking any better than Rhe Boar. I was careless. This was Zhao Yu's first time hunting such a large wild beast. With his robust physique, he had thought it would be easy. But in comparison, it seemed the boar's strength surpassed his own. At the very least, his punches couldn't break a tree as thick as a bowl. Roar! A distant beastly roar made Zhao Yu's face change. He quickly bent down, attempting to drag the boar. Up you goes. His face turned red from the effort, managing to move the boar just a little. I didn't think this through. Now, he couldn't leave without taking this boar back. Otherwise, all his injuries would be in vain. Of course, this was also related to Zhao Yu's desire to eat meat, without resorting to rat meat. After a brief test, with his strength, dragging this wild boar back should be feasible. Zhao Yu released the rope from his waist and tied one end of the rope around the wild boar's body, while the other end wrapped around his waist. This way, it was more effortless to walk. In a short while, he had walked more than 10 meters. In front of him, a dozen green eyes stared at him like a tiger watching its prey. This is not something you can eat. Zhao Yu became angry when he saw these wolves. Roar! After a wolf howl, the owners of more than a dozen pairs of eyes spread out and completely surrounded Zhao Yu and the wild boar. Sigh, bring it on. Zhao Yu loosened the rope around his waist and took out his dagger and pistol. One of the one-eyed wolves revealed a fearful expression. The wolf pack's advance suddenly slowed down. From a distance of dozens of meters, they began to circle around Zhao Yu. Zhao Yu stopped in place and waited for a while. When he saw that the wolf pack did not attack, he continued on his way. Who knew that after walking for a few meters, the wolf pack would get close to him again. This made him put down the rope again and take out his pistol to confront them. Damn it, if you want to fight, then fight. If you don't, then get lost. Zhao Yu was furious and cursed rudely. He had spent a lot of effort to get such a wild boar, but he had been targeted by these wolves. If you have the ability, go hunt wild boars yourself. Just as Zhao Yu was cursing, a wolf behind him had sneaked up to the boar and bit its hind leg. Zhao Yu turned around and saw that the wolf had run away with a piece of flesh in its mouth. Zhao Yu really wanted to take a shot at them, but he dared not. At this moment, no matter how much they tussled, it was still manageable. There was still meat to go around. But if a gunshot drew the attention of a mutant beast, then none of them would eat. However, this situation gave Zhao Yu an idea. He lifted his dagger and made a cut on the wild boar's body, tearing off a piece of meat. He waved it under the watchful eyes of the wolves, then threw it behind him. Howl! The next moment, a dozen wolves sprang into action, chasing after the piece of meat, effectively clearing the path forward. Zhao Yu quickly grabbed the rope and pulled the wild boar forward. He had able to go far when the wolves were distracted, but after they quickly devoured the meat, the pack chased Zhao Yu and blocked his path again. Damn it! Zhao Yu pulled out his dagger again, cutting off a larger piece of meat this time. Using all his strength, he threw it behind them. Seizing the chance, he advanced another 10 meters with the boar. With the wolves surround him again, Zhao Yu was frustrated. Reluctantly, he repeated his strategy, cutting off a piece of meat, throwing it, then moving forward. A good portion of the wild boar's meat, nearly half, was sacrificed before the majority of the wolves began to disperse. However, some hungry ones remained. Zhao Yu looked around and noticed that only 3 or 4 weaker wolves were still following, while the rest had left. You dare to follow? Zhao Yu scoffed and ignored them, dragging the wild boar quickly forward. With half its meat gone, the boar was considerably lighter. At first, the wolves blocked his way, but as Zhao Yu approached them, they scattered in different directions. They realized that someone who could hunt a wild boar could easily kill them. The wolves didn't stray far after dispersing. They followed behind Zhao Yu, occasionally licking the blood stains on the ground. After testing Zhao Yu a few times and not daring to attack, the wolves finally retreated when Zhao Yu left the forest, howling a few times. Zhao Yu was frustrated. He glared at the retreating wolves, gritting his teeth. Sooner or later, I'll kill you all and eat your flesh." With that, he returned to his house and knocked on the well cover. In a moment, Su Minglan climbed up through the well. Upon seeing it was Zhao Yu, she opened the well cover. "So much meat?" The moment she saw the wild boar, Su Minglan's eyes gleamed. Zhao Yu smiled slightly, feeling that his efforts were worth it. "Let's head down. We'll have pork party tonight." The two of them dragged the remaining meat back to the shelter. Under the light, Su Minglan could finally see Zhao Yu's condition clearly. The blood marks all over his body. She couldn't help but exclaim, "Are you okay?" Zhao Yu looked down and was startled by his appearance. He was drenched in blood. But he knew that most of them were just scrapes. They just looked scarier than they actually were. "It's fine. Let's deal with this meat first." Zhao Yu waved his hand, signaling Su Minglan to handle the pork while he headed to the bathroom. "Sister, is he okay?" Su Xiulan was also alarmed by Zhao Yu's condition and asked hesitantly. "He should be fine."
Su Menglan viplit un setini.
The poison she administered, why hadn't it taken effect? But now wasn't the time to worry about that. She asked Su Xiulan for help, and the two began processing the pork. By the time Zhao Yu finished his bath and came out, the pork had been cut into pieces and stored in a natural cold storage. "Honey, is this piece enough for dinner?" Su Minglan asked, holding up a small piece of pork. How could that be enough? Zhao Yu glanced at it, and realizing it would not even suffice for him alone, he grabbed 3 more pieces. "Cook all of these." "All? Isn't that too much?" Su Minglan was surprised. So much meat wouldn't last long if cooked all at once. "Just do it." Cooking was beyond Zhao Yu's expertise. He left it to Su Minglan and went back to his room to treat his wounds. After treating all his injuries and emerging from the room, dinner was ready in the kitchen. On the dining table were 3 plates of stir-fried pork dishes, along with a bowl of rice. The 2 sisters stood to the side, watching intently as Zhao Yu sat down. "Sit down. Aren't you going to eat?" Zhao Yu asked. The sisters gulped, and Su Xiulan hesitated before whispering, "Brother-in-law, can we eat too?" Zhao Yu smiled slightly, saying, "You and Su Lan are at an age where you need to grow. You need lots of protein. I got this especially for both of you." "Oh." Under Zhao Yu's repeated urging, they hesitantly sat down. Zhao Yu personally served, placing different types of meat on each plate and portioning it out to them. "Let's eat." Under his gaze, the 2 sisters wolfed down the meat in their bowls. Zhao Yu nodded in satisfaction. It seemed that Su Minglan didn't poison the dishes. "Where's Su Lan? Hasn't she woken up yet?" Su Minglan anxiously said. Su Lan wasn't feeling well, so she went back to sleep. Zhao Yu roughly understood that she was probably afraid he would harm her youngest sister, so he just shook his head. He didn't say much and continued eating. After a short while, he noticed that the 2 sisters hardly dared to pick any meat from the dishes. He sighed and proactively added some meat to their bowls. "No need, we've just eaten. How can that little bit be enough? Eat up quickly. Finish what's in your bowl." Zhao Yu ordered. The 2 sisters were feeling a mix of elation and inexplicable fear. While they joyously savored the meat, they remained anxious inside. Every time their bowls were emptied, Zhao Yu would proactively serve them more. There was still about a portion of food left on the table. "Leave the rest for Su Lan to eat when she wakes up." After saying that, Zhao Yu immediately left for his room. Clang dash. Only after hearing the familiar door shut did the 2 sisters breathe a sigh of relief. Su Xiulan asked anxiously, "Sister, what's he up to?" "I don't know." Su Minglan was wondering why Zhao Yu suddenly treated them so kindly. In the past, he wouldn't even let them have rat meat. He was surprisingly generous this time. Could it be our last meal before our execution? Su Xiulan almost cried out, "I remember watching TV shows where prisoners get a good meal before they die." Su Minglan was startled, but she reassured her, "It's okay. It's okay. We're not prisoners, and he is, after all, your brother-in-law." Su Xiulan finally calmed down and began to clean up the dishes. Su Minglan tiptoed to the master bedroom and eavesdropped for a bit, then stealthily retreated. "Is he asleep?" "Yes, he's snoring so loudly." "What about the food?" "Take it to your sister." Soon, Su Xiulan quietly came to Su Lan's door. knocking with their secret code. The door opened to reveal a girl who looked to be only 14 or 15. Su Lan wasn't actually that young. She was 17. But due to lack of nutrition, she appeared underdeveloped. Sister, what is this? Su Lan could not control her volume and exclaimed. Sure, quickly bring it in and eat. Su Lan hurriedly covered her mouth. Sis, you both should eat too. Su Lan wasn't willing to eat alone and wanted to invite her two sisters in with her. We've already eaten. After some persuasion from Su Lan finally took the food inside and then locked the door behind her. Zhao Yu slept for an unknown amount of time. After waking up, he stretched a little and then started exercising. In this post-apocalyptic world, he knew well that physical fitness was crucial. After almost an hour of bodyweight training, Zhao Yu stopped and opened his room door to leave. Walking around the corridor, he realized nobody was there. The three sisters were probably asleep. Without giving it much thought, Zhao Yu headed to the bathroom to rinse off with cold water. After finishing his bath, he found Su Lan was waiting at the door. Honey, you're awake. Are you hungry? Do you want me to prepare some food? No need. I'm not hungry yet. If you're hungry, go ahead and eat. Zhao Yu replied casually. Su Lan sneaked a glance at Zhao Yu's muscular chest and quickly turned her head away, but she was wondering why Zhao Yu had not been poisoned. It had almost been a day, and he had not succumbed. Could he be immune to the toxin? It seemed probable. After all, Zhao Yu had once taken a dose of a genetic potion. His physical fitness was much stronger than an average person. It was only natural for him to have a high resistance to poison. Over the next few days, Zhao Yu stayed in the shelter without going out. Besides eating and exercising, he also helped with chores and pedaled the manual electricity-generating bicycle. Su Lan and Su Lan, the two sisters, remained the same as before, but Su Lan was nowhere to be seen. According to the sisters' arrangement, Su Lan's schedule was the always exact opposite of Zhao Yu's. If it were the original Zhao Yu, he might have complained. After every meal, he instructed the two sisters to leave a portion for Su Lan. Another day, after Zhao Yu went back to his room to sleep, Su Lan went to find her elder sister. Sister, brother-in-law, seems to be a little off these few days. Something is wrong. Su Lan was also confused. In the past few days, Zhao Yu had been exceptionally kind to them in a way he had never been before. He not only refrained from beating and scolding them, but sometimes even helped with household chores. Zhao Yu had not called her into his room to abuse her. This left a void in her heart, as if something was missing. Su Lan shook her head. He might be pretending. An act? Su Lan was a bit confused. I feel like my brother-in-law has become a different person, very gentle. Don't be deceived by his appearance. Su Lan suddenly became alert. He might indeed be pretending, with the sole intention of luring Su Lan out, and then? Su Lan snapped back to reality. She had already been violated by her brother-in-law and couldn't let the same happen to her younger sister. Sister, he used to call you into his room every day, but he hasn't done so these past few days. In the past, Zhao Yu's favorite pastime was to torment her. Why was he so well-behaved now? I'll go in and check. Su Lan was about to check on Zhao Yu.
Cease.
Su Lan was a bit worried. One can't catch a wolf without risking their lamb. It's okay. I'm used to it. Su Lan reassured her younger sister, patting her hand and heading towards Zhao Yu's room. Knock, knock, knock. She gently knocked on the door. The door opened, and Zhao Yu, bare upper body, stood in the doorway asking, What's the matter? Honey, may I come in? Su Lan was conflicted but still asked. Zhao Yu stepped aside. Su Lan quickly entered. Zhao Yu then closed the room door. Soon after, Su Lan sneakily approached the door, pressing her ear against it to eavesdrop. What's up? Zhao Yu curiously inquired. Looking at his sweaty face, Honey, have you been exercising?
Su Lan asked.
Yes. The outside world is dangerous. If I don't keep training, the next time I go out, I might not return. Zhao Yu nodded. Su Lan was even more bewildered. She had thought that once she entered this room, the savage nature within Zhao Yu, he would emerge, overpowering her. However, Contrary to her expectations, Zhao Yu remained polite. After a few seconds of awkward silence, Su Minglan tried to continue their conversation. Honey, are your wounds healed? Mostly healed. The healing capabilities of this body were truly remarkable, demonstrating the potency of the gene potion. Yet Su Minglan's gaze inadvertently drifted to Zhao Yu's groin area. Could it be that he got injured there while hunting outside? If that's the case, wouldn't it be a blessing in disguise? With that thought, everything seemed to make sense to Su Minglan. Only if Zhao Yu had lost his capabilities explained why he had not approached her these past few days. Not just for whipping, even their normal intimate life had ceased. Moreover, he had shown a keen interest in Xiao Lan before, but ever since he returned from outside, he appeared disinterested. What a great news! Joy bubbled inside Su Minglan, but she kept her expression neutral. Honey, is there anything you want me to do? Zhao Yu shook his head. No. In the following days, whether it was a misperception or not, Zhao Yu felt that both Su Minglan and Su Xiaolan seemed treated him a bit nicer than before. Especially their gaze towards him had become much softer than before. Even one day, Su Lan briefly came out to join them for a meal. Throughout the meal, nothing happened, and Zhao Yu quietly returned to his room afterward. It's confirmed. He must have suffered a serious injury. He probably can't be intimate with women anymore. The three sisters rejoiced, feeling less burdened as they went about their chores. After finishing on the bicycle, Su Xiaolan approached Su Minglan, looking a bit uneasy. Sis, it seems something is missing from the house. What's missing? Su Minglan paused on her work. It's that small rolling pin. It seems to be gone. Really? I'll look for it later, Su Minglan gasped. By the afternoon, Su Xiaolan found that the small rolling pin had returned. At the dinner table, the family of four, unusually, sat together once more. Su Minglan looked at Zhao Yu, feeling an indescribable emotion. When Zhao Yu tormented her daily, she felt immense pain and just hoped for an end to her suffering. But now, Zhao Yu might be incapacitated. She felt a strange sense of emptiness. During the quiet hours of the night, she couldn't help but reminisce. After the meal, Zhao Yu made an announcement. I'm planning to go out again. There still seems to be a lot of meat left at home. We don't have much rice left. Carbohydrates are essential for the body. Zhao Yu mentioned about how important carbohydrates was to them. But didn't you say our trading post has been occupied by mutant beasts? Su Minglan was confused. Yes. I'm planning to visit Menghouse Village. It's a settlement of a few hundred people. Menghouse Village was about 10 kilometers away. Not too far, but a round trip would take at least 3 days. After all, daytime was the active time of mutant beasts, forcing people to take shelter and preventing travel. Isn't that dangerous? Su Minglan was apprehensive. Over the past few days, she had grown to appreciate this version of Zhao Yu. If he died outside, the sisters' lives would become even harder. It's okay. I've been training these days, and one feel my strength has increased. It was true. Whether it was the effect of the gene potion or due to his transmigration, every time he finished training, he felt a surge of new strength. The ceiling, which was 3.5 meters high, he could now reach with his head just by jumping. This kind of jumping ability was unprecedentedly strong. Zhao Yu had a plethora of knowledge related to genetic technologies in his mind. He was well acquainted with many ways to enhance strength. At the very least, on the lunar base, he believed he could easily create a more potent potion to enhance physical attributes without any issues. However, during his past conflicts with alien civilizations, they often used particle black holes and light needle strikes, which were immensely powerful, beyond human reach. He selectively overlooked all technologies that enhanced individual strength. After all, the technology points at that time were limited, and there seemed to be no need to focus on that aspect. In this world, the importance of individual strength has intensified, making it seem necessary to delve into this field. As far as he knew, Menghouse Village was one of the few nearby places that had a hospital and doctors. Besides procuring some carbohydrates, Zhao Yu also intended to gather some materials to synthesize a gene potion. Zhao Yu began packing and preparing to set off shortly. Not long after, Su Minglan walked in. Honey. She felt uneasy, wondering why her feelings had shifted so rapidly. If Xiao Yu did not mistreat her and had no ill intentions towards her sister, he was a good man. Throughout their recent interactions, Xiao Yu had completely fit her definition of a good man. What's the matter? I'm worried about you. Su Minglan was torn. A few days ago, she wished nothing more than for the man in front of her to die. Now, she feared his death outside. Xiao Yu gently patted her head, chuckling. It's okay. Good people die young, but the wicked live 1,000 years. Someone like me, how could I die so easily? Su Minglan hesitated and remained silent. Xiao Yu said directly, if you have something on your mind, just speak up. Su Minglan bravely uttered, Honey, I want to know, why have you changed so much these past days? After all, this was the man she had spent a year. If he really disappeared, she wanted to understand Xiao Yu's current mindset. Xiao Yu was unsure how to explain. Should he say that his soul had changed, and the husband who mistreated her was gone? Xiao Yu expressed regretfully, Minglan, I owe you an apology for my behavior this past year. Su Minglan was never expecting an apology from Xiao Yu. It's okay. You've protected the three of us sisters. I'm already very grateful. While she said this, deep down, she still held resentment for Xiao Yu's past violence against her. After what happened with Xiao Lan, I felt profound remorse when I returned to the room. I never thought I would become such a person that I hated when I was young. Yet, I grew up become one of them. I'll deeply regret it. I want to change and spend the rest of my life making up for the mistakes I've made. Su Minglan was astounded. She never expected to hear such words from Xiao Yu. Could it be that he genuinely had a change of heart and wished to become a better person? If that was the case, Su Minglan was filled with tears and sobbed uncontrollably on the spot. Xiao Yu quickly embraced her. It's okay. I will never hit you again. Really? Of course it's real. Have I hit you these past few days? Su Minglan hadn't expected such a twist in her life. However, soon, she froze. The hardness at her waist, she reached out and felt a familiar sensation. He wasn't castrated. Su Minglan was shocked. If Xiao Yu wasn't castrated, then why had he spared her youngest sister? What's wrong? Xiao Yu noticed Su Minglan's sudden stop in crying and her hand grabbing at his private parts, feeling a bit embarrassed. Honey, is there something wrong down there? What should be wrong with it? Xiao Yu asked. No, nothing. Su Minglan still held back her true feelings and made an excuse about preparing dried food and quietly left. When Xiao Yu was about to leave with his belongings, indeed, Su Lan was absent. Only Su Minglan and Su Zile Ellen were there to see him off. With their complex expressions and various emotions, Xiao Yu took out the pistol from his waist and handed it to Su Minglan. If I don't return within a week, it means I'm dead. You two will have to rely on yourselves. This? Su Minglan took the pistol with disbelief. Could he really trust her with such a weapon? In the past, not to mention pistols, even sharp knives were kept in a safe. The knives used for cutting meat had to be returned after use. Now, Xiao Yu had entrusted all these to her. Su Minglan was deeply shocked, feeling like she was seeing the man in front of her for the first time. Off to go. See ya. Xiao Yu smiled and turned to climb up the ventilation shaft. Solar System Moon Base. Xiao Yu was checking the exchange list in the control room when he suddenly found something he had never seen before. Mini-base. You can spend certain technology points to send a mini-base to the clone. E-grade mini-base can produce technology items from level 0 to 0.5. Exchange required, 10,000 technology points. D-grade mini-base can produce technology items from level 0.5 to 1. Exchange required, 100,000 technology points. This? Xiao Yu quickly asked the system to elaborate for more details. After the explanation, he realized that the clones were originally a part of him and bore his soul imprint. The existing base was already established at the moon, and as part of him among the clones, the system created a trimmed-down version based on the current base. The capabilities of these trimmed-down versions depended on the technology he had on the moon base. Besides, these trimmed-down systems could not upgrade on their own and could only exchange for the technology. This meant that if he exchanged for a mini-base here, he could directly send it to the other two clones. This would not only ensure their safety, but also accelerate their development. I didn't notice this before. Zhao Yu scratched his head, thinking that if he had discovered this earlier and sent it to the first clone, he might have unified the entire Neptune by now. However, it wasn't too late. Glancing at his remaining technology points, he had just over 90,000, most of which he had obtained when Colonel Chu destroyed the military unit of the Fire Fury civilization. One can only exchange 2 E-grade mini-bases for the 2 clones. As the clones were also him, having such a trimmed-down system would greatly increase their chances of survival. The clone on Neptune was fine since their consciousness was already connected. If there were any problems, he could seek analysis from the Uncle Da and the system established on Moon. But he had no idea what the second clone was facing, so this was exactly what it needed. Do you wish to spend 10,000 technology points to exchange an E-grade mini-base for the first clone? Yes. Do you wish to spend 10,000 technology points to exchange an E-grade mini-base for the second clone? Yes. Without any hesitation, Zhao Yu exchanged for the 2 mini-bases. According to the system, an A-grade mini-base could exchange for technology items just like his main base, but the price was exorbitant, an astronomical figure he didn't dare to think about. The most probable mini-bases he could exchange for the clones in the future were D-grade and C-grade, costing 100,000 and 1 million technology points respectively. With the title King of War, as long as the secret base under Colonel Chu was successfully built and began to destroy the Empire's military units, his technology points would significantly increase. E-grade mini-base, that should be enough for the second clone. After leaving the fallout shelter, Zhao Yu headed in the direction of the Ming family's residence in the dark. After traveling 10 kilometers in one night, Zhao Yu should be able to reach his destination by tomorrow night. As dawn approached, Zhao Yu found a thick tree trunk and tied himself to it, covering himself with some camouflage made from tree leaves he had prepared in advance. Roar! A thunderous roar jolted Zhao Yu from his sleep. Zhao Yu looked in the direction of the sound, prepared to flee if danger approached him. Thump dash! Thump! Even while lying on the tree trunk, Zhao Yu felt the tremor, as if some colossal creature was moving on the ground. Mutated beast. In the original host's memory, he had once caught a fleeting glimpse of a mutated beast. It was a grotesque monster several tens of meters tall. It seemed more like a conglomeration of various beings. Its appearance was hideous, but it was also incredibly terrifying. The sheer size of the creature alone was enough to pose a significant threat to an entire city. Beyond the roars of the mutated beast, Zhao Yu faintly heard gunfire. Could it be that humans are battling with the mutated beast? The sound of the gunfire that not even louder than the beast's roars. Zhao Yu predicted their firepower might not sufficient enough to confront the mutant beast. It couldn't be. Could it be Ming House Village? The source of the roar was in the direction he was heading towards Ming House Village. Could my luck be this bad? Zhao Yu intently listened to the distant noises. About half an hour passed, and the sound of gunfire had almost ceased, but the roars continued intermittently. Based on this half hour of listening, Zhao Yu noticed that each roar seemed to convey different emotions. The initial roars were filled with rage. Later on, that sense of anger seemed to fade, replaced by a kind of majesty, as if the beast was declaring its territory. Zhao Yu wasn't overly concerned about the mutated beast. According to rumors, mutated beasts didn't deliberately hunt down individual humans. The size difference was vast. To the mutated beast, an individual human was insignificant, not even worth the effort of a snack. Unless there was a large pack of humans, only then would it possibly pique the beast's interest. It seems this mutated beast found Ming House Village. Upon seeing the beast approach, they would surely retaliate. However, the outcome seemed inevitable. At this stage, humans truly didn't have weapons capable of inflicting any damage on the mutated beasts. After waiting for a while and hearing the mutated beast's noises gradually fading, Zhao Yu finally heaved a sigh of relief. His mind wandered for a while before he fell into a deep slumber once again.
Bang! Bang!
Rat-a-ta-ta, I. A burst of intense gunfire awoke Zhao Yu once more. He tilted his head to look down. Not far in the woods, a group of humans was rushing towards him. What's happening? Zhao Yu's drowsiness disappeared instantly as he stared wide-eyed at the situation below. Is that? 7 or 8 humans armed with various firearms were retreating while shooting at a strange creature over 2 meters tall. The creature had an odd appearance, with a large wolf's head in its center and 2 tumor-like protrusions on its shoulders that looked like additional smaller heads. Mutated beast?
No.
At first, Zhao Yu thought it was a mutated beast. But on second thought, mutated beasts are typically enormous, while this creature was only just over 2 meters tall. If it's not a mutated beast, why does it look so peculiar? From his memories, the wild animals of this world, although generally larger than Earth, they have clear distinctions between body parts, unlike this oddity. Lai noticed that the strange creature wasn't as bulletproof as the mutated beasts. Bullets left bloody holes in its body, causing it to howl in pain. That howl, it sounds like a wolf? After another round of fierce fighting, the strange creature seemed to have had enough and fled the scene. The humans below all sat down in relief. Coincidentally, they were not far from the tree Zhao Yu was hiding. We finally got out. The mutated beasts are terrifying. They can even radiate other creatures. No wonder the strange creature resembled a wolf. It was a wolf that had been radiated by the mutated beast and underwent an initial mutation, turning into a mutated wolf. If humans were exposed to such radiation, would they also become such peculiar creatures? As these thoughts crossed his mind, Zhao Yu noticed one of the humans seemed to sense something and looked up in his direction. "What's that?" A voice shouted, and the group quickly stood up, aiming their guns in the direction he pointed. "Damn, how is this possible? I have been discovered." Zhao Yu was shocked. He quickly shouted, I'm human, don't shoot." At this moment, Zhao Yu was genuinely afraid that these people would fire a probing shot, leading to his unjust death. Although he had injected a gene potion, it was only the basic type. It might have granted him a bit of strength, but against bullets, his enhanced physique still wasn't enough. Zhao Yu slowly moved the leaves in front of him to reveal himself. The people below visibly relaxed, but still maintained their alert stance with their guns aimed at him. "Do you have any weapons? Throw down any weapons you have on you." The woman who had first spotted him obviously was the leader of the group. "I have 2 handguns and a dagger." Left with no choice, Zhao Yu replied, "Throw them down, muzzle pointing towards yourself. No tricks." The woman below made it clear that any extra movement from Zhao Yu might lead to his death. Zhao Yu hadn't expected to be discovered by others. In this wilderness, life and death seemed so unpredictable. He took out all the weapons on him and, under the watchful eyes of the group, tossed them down. As the handguns hit the ground, someone quickly picked them up. The leading woman then said, "Now, climb down the tree." Zhao Yu had no choice but to comply. Once he reached the ground, a gun was immediately pointed at his chest. Before he could say anything, a rope was used to bind his hands behind his back. Only then did the group lower their guns, and Zhao Yu got a good look at them. There were 7 of them in total, 3 women and 4 men. All were in their 20s, but their faces were fierce and scarred, clearly indicating frequent battles. "What are you doing here?" The leading woman stepped forward and inquired. Now that he had a moment, Zhao Yu took a closer look at her face. She was surprisingly pretty, yet a scar that marred her face and giving her a fierce appearance. "Tin from a town nearby, planning to go to Menghouse village to buy some food." After briefly heard about Zhao Yu's circumstances, the woman continued, "What's the situation in your town? It was fine before. We could go to the town eastern city to trade. But a month ago, a mutated beast occupied the city. Our trading post was gone, and I lost the chance to communicate with others." Zhao Yu spoke truthfully. Most of the information he had came from the trading post. Since the mutated beast arrived a month ago, he hadn't encountered any other humans for a long time. While there were many houses in the town, only his family truly resided there. "Are there any forces or factions in your town?" "None, just my family." "Who else is in your family?"